Today we're going to talk about principles of design, specifically balance. So let's first go over what are principles of design. Design or art has a lot of ideas that you can use to make it more effective, impactful, or interesting and appealing. So some of those principles that we would use to do that are balance, unity, emphasis, movement or rhythm, scale or proportion, and contrast. Since we're going to focus on balance today, let me give you a quick overview of what the other ones mean first. Unity is when all the parts of your picture come together and are really unified to look like one piece, and all the parts make sense together. They fit together kind of like a puzzle, and all the parts really visually come together and you see why they're all connected to each other. Emphasis. Emphasis is the same thing as focus. It's the main thing in your picture you want to see. If you had a painting with lots of black and white and then a big red dot, the red dot would be the main focus or the emphasis. Movement and rhythm. Movement and rhythm are sort of like a pattern. It uses something, repetition, but it can use the pattern in a way that creates this idea of movement and rhythm in your piece. So if you have a pattern, say by repeating lots of dots, if your dots start to move in a swirl or throughout the painting, you are now following that pattern along a line that gives this idea or illusion of movement. Scale and proportion, those mean the size of things relative to the size of other things. For instance, if you have an artwork with a person and a can of beans, you know that this can of beans is a certain size compared to the person. If I were to make a surreal artwork where things are kind of crazy and dreamlike and different, I could play with the scale by making the beans huge and then the person really, really tiny. And that's talking about scale. That would not be realistic. But in art, you might use scale to your advantage in that way. The last one on the list is contrast. Contrast means when something is really different next to something else, and they're so different it makes them stand out. Like using the colors black and white together. You can use white alone, you could use black alone, but when you put them both together, it really stands out how different they are. That one is super dark and one is super light. All right, so let's go back up to balance, what we're focusing on today. Balance means that both sides or all sides of your artwork look balanced. And by balance, we mean something, it's kind of like weighing something, but we're not actually weighing it. It's just how it looks. So when you look at something that's balanced, it visually feels like it's the same weight on both sides, even though it's not real weight. It's just this idea of weight. So if I had, say, a balancing scale with a bowling ball, and I put a marble on the other side, will they be balanced? No, the bowling ball is going to come way down here. But if I were to have a bowling ball on this side and a bowling ball on this side, they'll be balanced. Another way I could balance is by using different items that are equal in our weight or visual weight for our artwork. So if you have a bowling ball here, I could add maybe 100 or 1,000 marbles here, and it'll become balanced. So the same thing with an artwork goes. If I have a big circle, on this side, if I want it to be balanced, I don't have to put the exact same thing. If I put the same thing, it would be balanced, and that would be a symmetrical artwork, but it can be different. So maybe I'll draw a bunch of small shapes on this side. I'm gonna do some triangles and circles and squares, and it's still gonna feel balanced because I have a lot going on here and a big heavy shape here. So another way you could show balance is it doesn't have to be exactly split down the middle like that. That's just an example to understand, but it can be much more random. So maybe I have a long shape and it goes partway across the page. And then I'm gonna spread out some medium-sized shapes. And because I put them in different parts of my paper, the overall composition or the overall picture looks balanced. I could even add some small shapes throughout here, and I'm gonna make a point to spread them out in places that don't have a lot of visual weight. That way, my finished picture looks balanced. There you go, that's balance.